We better go to Eliana Ros-Lehtinen, Chairwoman of the Middle East Subcommittee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this hearing, and thank you to our witnesses. Throughout the past 6 months, there has been much discussion here in Congress about the role of this legislative body regarding nuclear agreements. The Obama administration's misguided policy toward Iran is a game changer, could potentially spark an arms race in the countries in the world's most unstable and dangerous region already. I disagree with the administration's insistence on taking our 1, 2, 3 agreements on a case-by-case approach rather than holding each country equally to the gold standard. Why are we holding countries in the Middle East to different standards than in Europe or in Asia? We should be holding each country to the very strictest of standards to ensure that maximum safeguards are in place. If Congress has the ability to vote up or down on a free trade agreement, why not on a nuclear agreement? That is why earlier this year I reintroduced, alongside with my colleague Brad Sherman, H.R. 3766, which reforms the Atomic Energy Act of 1954 to provide greater congressional oversight of nuclear agreements with foreign countries and protect against the threat of nuclear proliferation. Let's not forget about the U.S.-Russia Nuclear Cooperation Agreement, which was previously withdrawn by the Bush administration in 2008. Why? Because the President could not certify under the Iran, North Korea, and Syria Non-Proliferation Act that Russia was not providing nuclear, missile, and advanced conventional weapons to Iran. This is important to note because we cannot examine these agreements in a vacuum. When these 1, 2, 3 agreements are proposed, we must take into account our foreign policy and national security interests, as well as a country's human rights record, and we must hold each and every country to those same standards that we set. Which brings us to the 1, 2, 3 proposed agreement with Vietnam. I strongly oppose this agreement. Allowing Vietnam to enrich undermines our objectives in other areas in the Middle East, where allies such as the UAE and Jordan are held to the gold standard. Vietnam has an abysmal human rights record. The practice of human trafficking is rampant, and there are severe restrictions against religious freedom. Congress must be empowered in its oversight responsibility, and we must ensure that such agreements not only protect our interests, but help guard against the rising threat of nuclear proliferation. When Brad and I introduced the bill, NEI immediately opposed it, stating that the bill risks national security and that it will cost U.S. jobs. Some of these same claims were made about the Colombia Free Trade Agreement, which was initially signed in 2006, that if we didn't sign immediately, we would lose U.S. jobs. But after 5 years of congressional input and enhancement to approve the agreement, the idea of costing jobs did not prevent Congress from making the bill better, because in the end, expediency is not the objective. The objective is to create an agreement in which the U.S. benefits, and in the case of a nuclear agreement, U.S. national security should be the first priority. Then there's the claim that the bill would undermine U.S. national security because we will lack a commercial presence on the ground. But that did not do us any good in Russia. We have a 1, 2, 3 agreement with Russia, which I opposed, but that hasn't stopped the Russians from supporting and providing sensitive materials and technology to the Iranian and Syrian regimes. And finally, there is the narrative that the U.S. would lose commercial business, that these countries will go turn to other nations to fulfill their nuclear needs. Well, let's take a look at our foreign policy, our foreign military sales program. It might take some time to get through the process, that's true, but our military technology and equipment is the best. And these countries that follow the process that we have in place because they know that they are getting the best quality when they buy from us. The same can be said about our nuclear know-how. Nuclear technology is not something you want to cut corners on. You want the best. I believe that these countries will stay with American companies because they know what they can get from us. Congress should already have oversight responsibility over these sensitive agreements. Congress must have a final say in any agreement that includes enrichment, and we must be able to have an up and down vote. Mr. Chairman, when Congress will finally have a say over these nuclear agreements, we will ask, why hadn't we always done so? It makes common sense. It makes perfect sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to make my statement.